Hey guys, I just went ahead and fully completed the Quiet Place A Road Ahead game. I had a great time with this one, but it probably does need a little bit more time in the oven. It took me about 8.5 hours to complete. I did die a few times because I played on hard with the microphone mode on, which is what I would recommend you guys to do for the best, scariest, most tense experience because the difficulty affects everything that the monster can hear and how fast they'll react. And obviously, listening to your mic is just very, very fun. It's one of the main gimmicks of the game. So let me give you my pros, my cons, and then my final verdict of the game. My first pro is that visually the game is quite good looking. The facial animations, the animations on the monster, the actual texture work, all of that is pretty good. And the lighting I actually think is very, very good. I have no issues at all with the visuals in the game. Other than, how doofy your character looks. She's a bit of a doofy looking individual, but other than that, I think that, visually the game is quite good. But realistically, you're probably going to be staring at the floor and at your feet for the vast majority of the game. And that's because which leads into the audio design, you're going to be trying to not make any sound. So you're going to be trying to look out for any cans or any panes of glass or, anything that you could step on that might make some sound that might cause, your brutal demise. And as a result, the audio design is way, way more important than any visual design. And I think the audio is really, really good in the game. I just played Silent Hill 2, and one of my main praises for that game is the audio design being absolutely incredible. So genuinely some of the best I've ever heard in a game. And this game definitely doesn't hit those heights, but it does a fantastic job of conveying how important sound is. It does a great job of conveying how loud the ambient audio is versus how loud what you're doing is, right? Which is probably the most important thing in the game because you're not always going to have this little sensor out. You have the phonometer out here in the gameplay, and the left side is the ambient audio, and the right side is your audio. So you're always trying to keep your audio under that ambient audio, right? Pretty self-explanatory. But you're not always going to have that out. So the audio design being good and indicating that without you needing the meter out is super duper important. And I think the game does a great job at indicating, just how loud various surfaces are. And it really did instill me with a deep and utter hatred for gravel and an appreciation for WD-40 because apparently they just do not have WD-40 in this universe at all. It's only like 120 days into the invasion, and somehow every single door and drawer and locker and everything is just the creakiest, squeakiest shit on the entire planet. I don't know what the hell people were doing beforehand, but it's literally like every single door is that door from a horror movie. That creepy ass door? Every door is that door. It's a little bit silly, but the audio design is very good in the game. The gameplay is mostly a stealth puzzle game. You can't really fight this thing ever. And in fact, not until pretty far into the game do you even get the ability to distract the monster. So it is mostly just a stealth puzzle game. You are just, as you can see in the gameplay, slowly opening things, slowly doing everything in an attempt to keep your noise down so you aren't brutally murdered. And the game does something kind of interesting where it makes the main character severely asthmatic. And the benefit of that is that you now have a real need to search out, for these various resources. So you have to open those doors. You have to open those drawers because you're looking for inhalers. You're looking for medication to keep your asthma in check, which is indicated, by the lungs in the top left of the screen. And if your lungs go into the red, now you're going to have an asthma attack. And unless you perfectly time that QTE, you're probably dead. So you're always trying to keep, your lungs in a decent place. You're always trying to avoid that asthma attack, which is driving the exploration of the game. And I think it does a great job at that. Sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating because when you're in proximity to the monster, that causes wear on your lungs. And depending on your difficulty, your lungs will, have more or less wear on them. And on hard mode, it can be pretty severe. And I'll talk about that a little bit in the cons with the monster pathing and stuff. But overall, I think the gameplay does a good job of, presenting you with several different puzzles and areas you need to clear. It gives you several different paths. Maybe one path is pretty heavy on the climbing, but it's shorter. You can do that most definitely, but keep in mind that every single time you're straddling something or jumping on top of something, that's going to be more and more wear on the character's lungs, which is going to put you that much closer to having to utilize those resources that may be pretty scarce. So, I really do enjoy like a lot of the level design and the gameplay with the game, especially for the first, half of the game or first 60, 70% of the game. As you get to the latter half of the game, some of the stuff can start to become a little bit repetitive and a little bit annoying, especially as you're deprived of those necessities like inhalers. Every single time you're kind of forced into proximity of the monster, you're just like, God, come on, dude. Like, I have not seen an inhaler in a minute here. I am not in a good spot for this. And that can be a little bit frustrating more than scary. But for the most part, I think it does toe that line pretty well and keep things scary. The story here is really nothing to write home about. I honestly did not care about like any of the characters in the game, despite the game clearly wanting me to. I just wasn't given enough time to really make any sort of attachment to any of the characters, whether that's her husband or her dad or, just any of these people. I really didn't have too much of a relationship with any of them. But ultimately, the story is pretty simple here. You're just trying to get the fuck out of Dodge. And I think that's something that, you know, is simple enough and it draws the character to new areas as they're trying to find a way out and it keeps the story moving forward. It's fine, it's serviceable. But let me get into the negatives here. The first biggest negative is that at least on PC, this game is stutter city. Really, really bad stutters. You'll probably see it in the gameplay. This is just terrible, dude. I mean, we're talking every minute or two, you're getting a stutter, and I have a pretty top of the line rig. I have a Ryzen 7 7800X3D. I have 64 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz DDR5 RAM. I have the game on an NVMe SSD, and I have an RTX 4070 Ti Super. So I have a pretty beastly PC. No problems running the game, and even maxed out with all the bells and whistles. The game was at a solid 120 FPS. These are actual just fatty stutters that are unavoidable across all rigs, according to all of my research. And this may not seem that big of a deal to you, but then you realize that when the game stutters, it's actually analoging all of your inputs. What does that mean? Well, it means that when you're trying to slowly open a door, you're moving your mouse and you're slowly opening the door. Say this is the door, right? You're opening and then it stutters. Well, you're probably still moving your mouse and it's still cataloging all of those inputs. So the moment the stutter is over, it automatically inputs all of those mouse movements and the door just goes, it's like you fucking breach and clear that thing like you're a SWAT operative. You hit it with a battering ram and it flies open. Congratulations, you're dead. And this happens a lot. I mean, you're seeing in the gameplay how often you're opening doors and drawers and stuff like that, how big of a mechanic this is in the game. And anytime you stutter while you're doing that, you're probably dead. Which is really, really annoying. I also think the pathing for the monster and the AI for the monster can be a little bit annoying as well. Like I said in the gameplay, right? Because you are asthmatic, it's constantly wear and tear on your lungs, even when you're just in proximity to the monster. Well, a lot of the times you'll need to get into a door and the monster will just be at that door. And like I also said, you actually do play quite a bit of the game without any sort of ability to create a distraction for the monster. And you may be thinking, oh, well, I could just go, kick a can or something, and that'll distract the monster. No, if you do stuff like that, if you hit a can or you do anything that's too loud, the monster will just instantly kill you. So there isn't even a matter of like, okay, I'll sneak over here, I'll kick this can, and then I'll sneak around back, right? That doesn't even work. He'll just auto lock onto you and instantly kill you. Another one of my problems is that even if the monster is nowhere around, there was a point where I was in a cave and I was like crawling in the cave. It's a very small area, right? I go to read chat and I die. The monster just kills you. It will play a cutscene where you're like holding your mouth and you're in a completely different area and then the monster will just kill you. That's a little bit immersion breaking for me. I'm not really a big fan of that. If the monster isn't there, it shouldn't just like kill you. It shouldn't just play a cutscene and then you just die. I think that's a little bit silly. I feel like that should only really happen if you are like actually next to the monster, or the monster is actually in the area. Maybe they say that monster's in the area, but there's no way this giant ass thing is getting in this little baby cave that I was in, when I started shooting the shit with chat. So that was a little bit of a bummer. And my final negative, and why I think that the game just needs a little bit more time to cook, is that there's a lot of glitches here. A lot of the time, the monster would just get entirely stuck somewhere, run in place, unable to move. Hope to God that it's not stuck where you need to go, because once it gets stuck, it doesn't seem like it's moving at all. You have to just full reset. I had that happen several times. I had it happen where the monster wasn't stuck as in running in place, but it was stuck as in it was just in a loop where it would walk in and out of a door. This also happened several times to me, is that it would break like a wall and then it would just walk back and forth in and out of that hole that it broke in the wall. So they definitely need to do some tweaks with the AI, most definitely. I was kind of hoping it would be like Alien Isolation level, but it's nowhere close to as smart and as creepy and as adapting as the Alien Isolation AI was. And a couple of the other bugs I had. One time it let me open a door that required a key, but I didn't realize I didn't have the key. So by going through that door, I actually soft locked myself. I could not, it wouldn't let me squeeze through the passageway I was supposed to go through. And that's because I didn't have the key. So since I didn't have the key and since I didn't unlock the door, it didn't complete that check. So it didn't allow me to progress in the story. And so I was unable to progress. I was literally soft locked just because the game, I opened a door that I wasn't supposed to be able to open yet because I didn't have the key yet. So, yeah, definitely quite a few glitches on display here. Sometimes a big one was like if you have a flare, when you light the flare, it makes sound in your hand. And then when you throw it, it's supposed to obviously not make sound in your hand anymore. It's now supposed to make sound where you threw it. Well, I had several instances where I would light the flare, I would throw the flare, and then I could just look at the phonometer and it would tell me that for like 3 or 4 seconds after I threw that flare, it was still making the audio of the flare on my person. And I was so confused because this was like, I was supposed to distract this monster with this flare. And every single time he just, even though I was crouching, not moving, there was a lot of ambient audio, he was just pining right for me. Even though the flare is, 40 feet away from me, I just threw it. And it wasn't until I pulled out the phonometer that I saw, oh, it's bugged. It's recognizing that the audio is still coming out of me, even though it's obviously nowhere near me. So, yeah, definitely needs a little bit more time in the oven. That stuff can break immersion quite a bit. And then also just the writing. The characters just do dumb shit. They just do dumb shit that I don't really believe that they would do. Like they've survived 120 days in this situation. I don't think people are going to be fighting each other over petty squabbles. I don't think they're going to be shooting at each other. I don't think they're going to be shooting at the monster. All of this stuff just struck me as like a little bit silly. Like I didn't really buy it at all. But maybe that's just me. I know I'm probably a little bit smarter than most of the individuals in horror games and horror movies. They're usually not the smartest individuals, right? So maybe it's just that, but some of the writing I was not the biggest fan of. Overall, though, my rating for the game, I did really have a good time. This is not like a new or unique mechanic at all. The mechanic of like the monster can hear you, the monster's listening, everything that you're doing matters. A lot of indie horror games have done this already before, but this is kind of the first double A indie that has done this, I would say, or at least one of the few like big ones. And I think it is pretty fun. I would give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. For me, 5 is average, 6 is above average, 7 is good, 8 is great. I think that if they patch it and they fix the bugs and everything, I could easily see it going up to like a 7.5 even. I'm not sure it would ever approach an 8 for me personally, just because the this the gameplay does get a little bit repetitive, a little bit boring after, like 6, 7 hours. You're like, okay, I've been doing the same thing for a while now. And the writing is pretty laughable at times, with absolutely no replay value, I'll also add. So I don't really think it could ever get to an 8 for me, but I think it could become, a good game, a solidly good game at a 7.5, as long as they fix a lot of the bugs and a lot of the issues that it currently has. But let me know what you guys think. Did you play through the game? Are you planning to play through the game? Did you enjoy yourself? Does it look like something that you would like? I think it's also a little bit overpriced right now for what you get, but price, of course, is going to vary depending on everybody. If you like the video and you want to see more, then maybe drop a like and subscribe. I do review almost all of these, horror games. I absolutely love horror games, but I also review all of the new releases. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see all of you in the next video or Stream Stream Bye bye.